What a wonderful turnout.
Give the mayor talking.
Yes, I haven't been in there yet.
Anxious to see that.
I know.
Everyone, if you would, please rise for the entrance of the Honour Guard, comprised of the British Columbia Regiment and the Royal Westminster Regiment.
Looking good, Sean, looking good.
Please remain standing for the arrival of the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia. The guard commander is approaching the dais to ask Her Honor if she wishes to inspect the guard. Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor invites the following people to join her in the inspection: the Honourable Carrie Lynn Finlay, Minister of Revenue; His Worship Wayne Wright, Mayor of New Westminster; Lieutenant Colonel David Vernon, Commanding Officer, the Royal Westminster Regiment. The Guards this morning are commanded by Major Doug Evans, Commanding Officer of the British Columbia Regiment. Good morning, everyone. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to this very exciting and historic day in New Westminster. My name is Belle Puri. I am so pleased to be with you here today on behalf of my colleagues at CBC Vancouver. CBC is a proud sponsor of Wait For Me Daddy, supporting the project in the planning stages, reporting on its progress as the art came to life, right through to today. This morning's unveiling is being live streamed on the CBC website, cbc.ca/BC. It will be monumental, I promise you. First, New Westminster's Vivo Children's Choir, if you will come to the stage for the singing of our national anthem. ladies and gentlemen, the Vivo Children's Choir. Please be seated for our program. Rhonda Larrabee is Chief of the Hyack First Nation. Chief Larrabee will offer a First Nations welcome. Chief?
Hosiem, Hosiem. Good morning, everyone. Lieutenant Governor Judith Guichon, Your Worship, Mayor Wainwright, councillors, ladies, gentlemen, honored and distinguished guests. I'm excited to be here for this wonderful celebration. On behalf of my ancestors, I welcome you to the traditional territory of the Hyack First Nation. Hyack means resting place, and we are often referred to as the river people. My ancestors lived on this great river and existed on the offerings that the river provided. They traveled in cedar canoes to visit other villages on the Fraser and were welcomed with warm greetings, a feast, and dancing to the heartbeat of our drums. Well, this day has created such a buzz here in the Royal City for quite a while. Today is the unveiling of bronze statues depicting one of the most famous photographs taken in 1940, called Wait for Me, Daddy. Other special guests will speak more in depth about this. For many, I'm sure it has brought back sad memories of World War II, but also the happiness of victory and freedom for all. As a result, I too had family members who served overseas during the war, and I share those same feelings. The City of New Westminster has recently opened the Anvil Centre, a beautiful new multi-use facility right across the street. Plans for the future are in the works for many exciting new projects, but New Westminster prides itself on always remembering and honoring their past, their history. Today is a testament to that. Congratulations. I can't wait for the unveiling. Thank you. Hyack Siem, Hyack Siem.
It's now my pleasure to invite Her Honour, Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, Judith Guichon, to bring greetings.
Good morning. Your Worship, Mayor Wright, Minister Findlay, Senator Campbell, Deputy Premier Coleman, Minister Fassbender, Chief Larrabee, Members of Parliament, Members of the Legislative Assembly, Consul General Hyack, honoured veterans, Mr. Bernard, esteemed sculptors, members of the British Columbia Regiment and the Royal Westminster Regiment, distinguished guests, neighbours and friends. We'll wait for the SkyTrain. He has a schedule to keep. It is a great honour to be here this morning in Hyack Square to take part in the unveiling of this iconic war memorial. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the Hyack First Nation on whose land we are gathered for this important ceremony, and thank you for that welcome. It is most appropriate that as we commemorate 100 years since the beginning of the First World War, we acclaim this tribute to those British Columbians who marched off so bravely to fight the Second World War and defend those values that we hold so dear. It is remarkable to contemplate the life-altering effect on so many that one split second in time can make. The right people in the right place at the precise moment, and a spontaneous action freezes one precious memory and makes it a permanent part of our history. Congratulations to those who had the vision to create this memorial and to transform this historical Hyack Square into a vital living museum, telling the story of the wars and the significance of that history to New Westminster, then as now live as this city center continues to grow and evolve. I would like to say a special thank you to the Vivo Children's Choir for leading us in O Canada. It is so important that the children are here today, because as much as this statue is a tribute to the past and to that very special moment that was frozen in time by the famous photo taken by Claude Detloff, it is also an important testament to the future. As we honor and thank our veterans for their strength and courage in that terrible conflagration, we must remember the appalling price that was paid and the terrible waste of resources, the devastation of crops and land in Europe, and the thousands of families whose parents and spouses did not return, or those who came back having suffered life-altering injuries. Thank you to all those. Thank you to all those who have worked so hard to make this day a reality. And as the representative of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, congratulations on making this wonderful vision a reality. Thank you.
The Wait For Me, Daddy initiative could not have been possible without the support of the Federal Department of Canadian Heritage, which contributed $191,700 to the project. Please welcome from the federal government the Minister of Revenue, Carrie Lynn Finlay.
Well, thank you. It's so wonderful to see so many of you here today sharing this moment. Bonjour à tous. C'est un plaisir d'être ici avec vous aujourd'hui. Your Honor, Lieutenant Governor, my colleagues from the House of Commons and BC Legislature, Chief, members of our Canadian Armed Forces, past and present, Mayor Wright and municipal councillors, Mr. Bernard, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is truly an honor to be here today. This is a national occasion because the Wait For Me, Daddy photograph is part of the Canadian experience. La Première et la Deuxième Guerre mondiale sont des événements importants qui ont contribué à établir une identité nationale distincte au Canada. It is a fitting tribute that the City of New Westminster has commissioned this statue. Our government is proud to have helped contribute towards its creation so that Canadians and visitors alike can visit, draw inspiration, and pay homage to the brave men, women, and families of that generation and honor the sacrifices they made during World War II. As we prepare to celebrate Canada's 150th anniversary in 2017, These commemorations will encourage Canadians to understand more about our history and reaffirm our pride in our achievements. On the road to 2017, we will encourage all Canadians to commemorate events just like this one and celebrate accomplishments and honor the people who have helped shape who we are today. People like Rifleman Charles Bernard and Rifleman Henry Quicon, who are here with us and are living testaments to the poignancy of this photograph. Gentlemen, thank you for your service to our country. Nous allons honorer les personnes, y compris les autochtones, les femmes et les Canadiens de toute origine qui ont fait partie des forces armées ou non et qui ont pris part à ces événements. Today's memorial unveiling is just the first step in honoring the important place that New Westminster, cue the SkyTrain, honoring the important place that New Westminster holds in the story of Canada's participation during World War II. Beginning next year, as part of the ongoing commemorative activities for Wait For Me, Daddy, what a wonderful name, walking tours, literacy readings, community art projects, and musical performances will be offered and served as a way for us to continue reflecting on the contributions, dedication, and honorable service of these national heroes. I'm also delighted that Canada Post and the Royal Canadian Mint are making this famous photograph more widely known across the country and to the generations born since the Second World War through their respective releases of a new general issue stamp and $2 coin. Every Canadian should understand the sacrifices the wartime generation made, both overseas and here at home, and the sacrifices that our service members and their families continue to make on our behalf. 5 weeks from now, we will mark Remembrance Day, and Canadians will gather at cenotaphs and memorials. The ceremony in Ottawa will be live on TV. Events in cities will have large gatherings. But in hundreds of communities across Canada and abroad, only a few will gather, and they might even be outnumbered by the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and airwomen whose names have been carved into the local memorial in the years since. Wherever they called home, those men and women served, and they sacrificed, as did their families. They left home, and they did not return. Après qu'ils sont allés à l'étranger, les gens qui les aimaient étaient encore à la maison. Les parents, les frères et sœurs, les conjoints et les enfants. The Wait For Me, Daddy photograph captured a tender last reach for a father's hand just before he went off to war. Last year, as Associate Minister of National Defense, I had the privilege of being at CFB Esquimalt to welcome home the HMCS Regina after an 8-month deployment to the Arabian Sea on counterterrorism operations. As we waited for the ship to come in, there was a little girl wearing a T-shirt that read, "I've been waiting 254 days to hug my dad." Like that girl's father, Whitey Bernard's father did return, but many did not. The photo expresses the emotions millions have felt in similar circumstances. That is why it resonates so deeply every time we see it. The service and sacrifice not only of that generation, but of all our men and women in uniform and their families deserves to be commemorated today. Il mérite notre respect et notre gratitude. It is a special privilege to share this occasion today with all of you and to honor those members of our Canadian Armed Forces who carry on this tradition of service and dedication to Canada. Thank you. Merci.
Also with us today among our federal guests, Senator Larry Campbell. Thank you, Senator. From the province of British Columbia, we're joined by Education Minister Peter Fassbender, and to bring greetings from Victoria, Deputy Premier and Minister of Natural Gas and Development, Rich Coleman.
Your Honor, special guests, ladies and gentlemen, and the true heroes of Canada, our veterans and serving members of the Canadian military, thank you for your service. I can never go to an event that has us remembering the sacrifices that people made on behalf of Canadians and see people here who need to remember how important it is that they stood up for our freedom so that we could be gathered here today in a safe and democratic country. I always remember my father, who was in the Navy in the Second World War. One of my heroes, my father-in-law, who hit the beaches in the first wave during D-Day. And today I also think of my son, who served the Canadian military and served in Afghanistan. I understand the stresses when people serve in a military environment on families and children and all extended families and friends that they know. We as Canadians should always remember how important folks like this that stand up and do what's best for us, protect us and protect our country, and how important they are to our history. Today we get a chance to do something special here, and Mayor Wright and the City of New Westminster, a special congratulations, because this will be a spot where people will come to remember how many of us do, the people in our families and our friends who have actually helped build this country. The iconic photograph, as you know, captures two things: the pain of separation and the value of duty. And it also reminds us the thrill and joy of reconnecting. I thank the veterans and soldiers for their service. I want to thank especially the City of Vancouver, as I said, and the people that volunteered and worked so hard to make this a successful event for you today. This will become something special that we'll all be able to bring our children and grandchildren to help them remember that the reason we have this great country is some people made the ultimate sacrifice to make it so. Thank you.
Wait for Me, Daddy, the photograph. Its touching statement on war and family and separation, we all know, captured the attention of people around the world. Now, the magnitude of Wait for Me, Daddy, the monument, and this unveiling has done the same. The city is honored to have with us here today Netherlands Consul General, Mr. Gert Hyack.
It's okay. Good morning, everybody. Your Honour, Lieutenant Governor, Chief, Deputy Premier, Ministers, Members of Parliament, Councillors, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bernard, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, but most of all, distinguished veterans. These are years of remembrance and commemoration. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the beginning of the First World War and the 75th anniversary of the beginning of the Second World War. Next year, in 2015, we will commemorate that 200 years ago, Napoleon was defeated finally on the plains of Waterloo. Indeed, with brilliant foresight, 350 years ago, the 17th century mathematician and philosopher from France, Blaise Pascal, already observed that all problems in the world, and I quote Pascal, derive from the fact that people cannot bring themselves to simply stay home. Next year, ladies and gentlemen, my country will commemorate that 70 years ago, it was liberated from the Nazis by Canadian troops. Canadians still rank among the most popular visitors in the Netherlands. The Dutch have long memories and will be eternally grateful to men like Whitey Bernard's father, who bravely marched off to fight an enemy they hardly knew in what for most of them must have been a remote part of the world where people seem to keep getting themselves in trouble. Europe has been in peace now for 3 generations, but on Europe's borders, things are not getting any better. With trouble, increasing trouble brewing on our eastern borders, and further south, Western nations again standing shoulder to shoulder, or maybe I should say flying wing to wing, to confront a loose band of terrorists and barbarians, the likes of which we haven't seen since Attila the Hun. At times like this, it's good to commemorate the courage and the sacrifice of all those brave men and women in uniform who paid the ultimate price in so many armed conflicts around the world, so that we may live in peace and democracy, lest we forget. Thank you.
And now, your host on this momentous day in New Westminster, the Mayor of New Westminster, His Worship, Wayne Wright.
Well, thank you, and Your Honor, distinguished guests, my fellow New Westmerites, and the people who have come from British Columbia, the veterans, to come to visit with us and be here on this very special day. It's a good afternoon to everyone, and welcome this momentous day for the city of New Westminster, our royal city. I'd like to say a special welcome to everyone joining us on the CBC or the internet, because it's an exciting and a wonderful day here in the beautiful city of New Westminster. To begin, I'm pleased to introduce our current council, Jonathan Cote, Bill Harper, Jamie McAvoy, Betty McIntosh, Chuck Puckmeyer, and Laurie Williams. And we are so honored to have so many special guests with us today. The Wait For Me Daddy War Memorial Project holds a special place in all of our hearts. We are commending and commemorating a special time in New Westminster's history. 74 years ago, this iconic photo was taken, and today we are overjoyed that the 2 veterans, Charlie Bernhout and Henry Kerwatkin, are able to be here with us. I know there are some others in today's audience who were also here on October the 1st, 1940, and I want to especially welcome you all back to the city of New Westminster. Now, during the making of this project, we have heard from many people who recognize that the significance of this goes way beyond honoring our military, both past and present. It is also an opportunity to recognize the impact of war on families. I would like to thank the Heritage Canada for their significant contribution to the Wait For Me Daddy War Memorial Project, and also to thank our other distinguished donors who have also made generous donations here, including the Rotary Clubs of New Westminster, West Group Properties, Larco Properties, Uptown Property Group, and River Market, as well as Colin Bosa. And we are very appreciative to have worked with Canada Post, who have issued a commemorative stamp, and the Royal Canadian Mint, who have launched a special $2 coin that coincides with the Wait For Me Daddy War Memorial unveiling. And we are pleased that they are with us here today. So we are all honored that all of you are here with us for this very momentous occasion in the city of New Westminster, a day will be remembered by all of us forever. Thank you.
As you've heard, it was October 1st, 1940, the BC Regiment marched down that hill to this very spot. A boat on the river was waiting to take the soldiers for final training in Nanaimo, and then they left for war. It happened well over 7 decades ago. There were hundreds of soldiers. 2 of them, 2 riflemen, are here today. They are why we are here today, to remember and to honor their and their fellow soldiers' courage and bravery. Over the last few weeks and months, I consider myself very lucky to have met both of them, and now I'd like to introduce them to you. First, World War II veteran, Rifleman Charles Bernhard.
This is a very momentous moment to have this city of New Westminster create what we're experiencing today. And we're just overwhelmed with everything. It's all too much for you to absorb and to handle. And at this particular time, it's kind of hard for you to get in our sunset years. You get too emotional. But really, I thank everyone very much for the very, very nice reception that has been accorded while our visit here. Thank you.
Mr. Bernhard and Rifleman Jack Bernard, Daddy and Wait For Me Daddy, were friends. In fact, Charlie was telling me that he asked Jack to help him enlist, and back in 1940 he was 19 years old. The other gentleman I'd like you to meet, he marched down the same hill on the same day, but he and Charlie never met until just 2 days ago as they returned to visit New Westminster. Rifleman Henry Kriwalken.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I do remember walking down that hill, but that's about all I remember. But I want to thank everybody for the wonderful work they did out in memory of us. The tremendous work. It wasn't easy. I realize that. Everything's been said, so all I can say is you have to remember I'm one of the many that give you the freedom that you have enjoyed all your life. I haven't got much more to say because everything's been said. Thank you very much.
The photo we're here to honor, you've heard over and over, 74 years ago, and what would that be, 3 days? So 74 years and 3 days ago. It was captured by Province photographer Claude Detloff. The Province newspaper has been very supportive of the Wait For Me Daddy project and has provided quite a week of insightful articles and look-backs and coverage over the months. The Province is also one of the official media sponsors of the project. Wayne Moriarty is the Province newspaper's editor-in-chief.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Wright, for this. Thank you to all of the people of New Westminster. I cannot adequately express what a terrific honor this is for the province and the Pacific Newspaper Group. The province has been around since 1898. Over the course of that period, we have employed, in my modest estimations, hundreds and hundreds of photographers who, during that time, have chronicled life in the Lower Mainland in an unprecedented fashion. Those hundreds of photographers have taken, and I did the quick math around this, probably they've published in the area of 250,000 images. If you were to pile those images somewhere in this square, one atop another, the one that would be on top would be "Wait for Me, Daddy." It continues to, I think it was 74 years ago, continues to resonate in a way that no other image has since, and I would find it highly unlikely anyone will in the future. Again, thank you. This is a terrific honor. Another honor I have is to introduce the grandchildren of our amazing photographer who took the image, Claude Detloff, his grandchildren, Scott and Candace McPherson. Thank you.
Thank you. This is certainly one remarkable day. My family and I are so delighted and proud to be here, amazed, quite frankly, at the events of this day. And I'm more than happy to take a few moments to shed just a little light on the man behind the photo. My brother Scott and I knew Granddad as just that, a grandfather. He was a kind, gentle, blue-eyed soul who drove a pale blue Valiant, loved baseball, always had his glasses dangling between his teeth whenever he adjusted his camera. He had a sweet tooth, a beautiful garden, a dark room in his basement, and I'm still fairly certain that he always let us win when we played cards. He was simply a lovely man. The lifelong professional newsman, however, the artist, regrettably I didn't get to know him until after he passed. And the source of this knowledge arrived in the form of 3 boxes filled with correspondence sent to Granddad over the decades. If it hadn't been for this history of words, I never would have discovered the man of images, for I don't recall Granddad ever speaking about his work. I had no idea of the extent to which he was regarded. Contained within were stacks of appreciative letters from readers of the province, notes of thanks from dignitaries and citizens alike from across North America. A program for an exhibition of his work held at the Vancouver Art Gallery in 1943. I had no clue. Constant requests for copies of his photos, continuous queries as to whether a book of his photos would be published, fascinating letters from Harry Rode and Nick Morant, famous Canadian photographers in their own right, and best of all, to my mind, the transcripts for 2 radio interviews Granddad had done in 1941 and 54. I learned that Granddad never ran with the pack. Instead, he went his own way, searching for the spot he felt would deliver the most compelling story. As he said, he liked to get a feel for the subject of a picture, becoming attuned to the environment around him and sensing the possibilities within. He believed a news photographer's chief requirements, other than lightning reflexes, were imagination and infinite patience. And yes, often good fortune. The key, of course, was to possess both the skill and preparedness to take advantage of that fortune. And so it was, that October day in 1940. In Granddad's own words, "The long gradual hill on 8th Street running into Columbia looked as though it might produce the kind of picture I was looking for. As the long line of marching men started down the hill, I could see a second line of wives, children, and sweethearts to the left of the column, marching with them. I felt that something of a sentimental nature was bound to happen, so was watching for it. When the little boy, Warren Bernard, reached out his hand to his dad and called, 'Wait for me, Daddy,' I knew that was it, and clicked the shutter of my camera almost without thinking." When asked if he'd taken any other shots of the departure that day, he replied, "Not a single one. That was it. And I knew it before I even printed it." And the rest really is history. And yet I wonder, despite knowing he had what he'd been waiting for, if Grandad could possibly have fathomed that the emotional impact and poignant, perhaps eternal relevance of his photo would be just as powerful, would be felt just as keenly now, 74 years later, as it was on the day he captured it. I can't imagine that he could have fathomed the events of this day, for he was a quiet, humble man, a behind-the-scenes craftsman who, while gracious with the accolades his work as a whole afforded him, was not at all one to turn the lens upon himself. But I do believe that he would be touched at the acknowledgement and remembrance and respect afforded him today. I believe he would be deeply honored. Thank you.
And now for a very special introduction, I'd like to turn it over to His Worship, Mayor Wainwright.
This is probably going to be one of the easiest introductions that I've ever made because it's simple. It's Whitey, the boy in the monument. Whitey.
Honored guests, Mayor and Council, and thank you, Mayor White, for the kind words. I'm deeply honored to be part of this ceremony and celebration today. Citizens of New Westminster, you should be proud of this achievement by your city. I especially thank Mayor Wainwright and Councillor Laurie Williams and staff for their organization and hard work over the past 2 years. Yes, it's over 2 years ago that Councillor Williams ran me down, so to speak, at the Horseshoe Bay Ferry Terminal and informed me of the proposed project. Obviously, much has been accomplished to arrive at this day. It's 74 years since the province photographer Claude Detloff caught me in hot pursuit of my father, right here on Columbia Street at this very spot. The photo speaks for itself, a moment in time captured forever. The people of Canada, in their appreciation, have given the picture a life of its own. A large copy exists in the War Museum in Ottawa. It's been featured on book covers, in books, newspapers, magazines, poppy posters, and even on a tea caddy sponsored by the Royal Canadian Legion. Over the years, many people, including the media, have contacted me in person or phone or letter, and now on the internet, and mostly just to talk about the photo or identify with it. The story in the picture is reality. My father went to war. As a non-commissioned officer, Headquarters Squadron, 2nd Canadian Armored Brigade, he landed at Juno Breach on or just after D-Day and saw action through France, Belgium, and Holland to Germany. Over the 5 years of his service, I only saw him once when he came back on compassionate leave on Christmas 1943. To answer the most asked question, yes, Sergeant Jack Bernard returned safely home in October 1945. The marriage did not survive the war years. My mother, with her independent spirit, struggled to keep me with her during that time. And when I see the monument today, it will be with some emotion. The photo is a last record of us together as a family. To see that moment captured in bronze as a war memorial would be very meaningful to me. My parents are both gone now, but had my mom been alive, she certainly would have enjoyed the notoriety and the excitement of this day. As for my father, I'm not sure. It took many years before he even spoke of his war experiences. The second most asked question is what happened to the little boy? Well, apparently he's now cast in bronze. He shares the honor of being on a coin with the Queen. He finds himself on a Canadian postage stamp. The circumstances of the day placed the 5-year-old there. A talented photographer recorded the scene. The real story: I've had an adventurous, exciting, and successful life. My wife Ruby and I have celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. I have 4 children and 6 grandchildren, and I live in the most beautiful part of BC, Tofino on the west coast. A moment in time, 74 years ago, subsequent to the photo appearing in the paper, I was drafted, you may say, to assist in the victory bond drives to raise money for the war effort. I pointed to the picture and said, "Please buy a bond to help bring my daddy home." The organizers referred to me as the boy in service. Well, the 80-year-old boy is still in service. Thank you.
In addition to unveiling the monument, we also have 2 other very special celebrations today. You've heard a little bit about them through the course of the morning. The first is the official launch of the Wait For Me Daddy stamp. To tell you more about the stamp from Canada Post, Mike Sheeran, General Manager, Plant Operations, Coast.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is such a special occasion, and I'm proud to be part of it. As Canadians, we are blessed to live in one of the most beautiful and peaceful nations in the world. Many of us have no idea what it means to leave everything and everyone behind because of a war. I can only imagine it. In 1940, as the Second World War raged, the men of New Westminster and of Canada bravely accepted the call to duty. The Wait For Me Daddy statue and the stamp pay tribute to that generation of men and to their families. Stamp designers have a small canvas, usually less than a couple of square inches. But our stamp program has an endless treasure trove of potential subjects. That's because we used a stamp program to tell this country's story, to celebrate its milestones and its achievers in every kind of endeavor. We also use stamps to commemorate the significant events that stand out in Canada's rich history. The taking of the Wait For Me Daddy photograph was such an event. It began with one click of the shutter. It became a national icon, reproduced countless times. It is one split second frozen in time, but it tells a story all its own. A story of the love between father and son, a story of a community rallying, of men volunteering and now parading proudly. The story of wives and family walking alongside their men one last time before the soldiers board a ship and they all say goodbye. And we are happy to have that son, Warren Whitey Bernard, with us today. It is such a great photograph. Our stamp designers knew that a very light hand was all it needed, so they simply framed it in a symbol of remembrance, poppies. I would like to acknowledge the stamp designers, Susan Maver and Harry Olson, and I'm delighted Susan could join us today. This stamp would be a perfect choice as we near Remembrance Day. It will be available at the Canada Post stand at the reception. Buy it, use it, but most of all, I encourage everyone to remember with gratitude Whitey Bernard's father and a million other Canadians of his generation who defended our freedom. Thank you.
And you certainly can't have one federal agency outdone by another. So today we also get to see for the first time the new Wait For Me Daddy toonie. There will be 5 million in circulation. Marc Brulé is the interim president and CEO of the Royal Canadian Mint.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I want to thank the City of New Westminster and of all of the supporters of Wait For Me Daddy Memorial Project for welcoming the Royal Canadian Mint to this important commemoration of a symbolic moment which, for the last 75 years, has profoundly defined Canada's experience in the Second World War. I am privileged today to join you in remembering the courage of our troops who marched off to war to defend Canadian values, and the selflessness of the loved ones left behind as all of Canada joined the fight for freedom, democracy, and justice from 1939 to 1945. Remembrance of our veterans and of our fallen soldiers is a theme that Mint employees have been extremely proud to commemorate through a variety of collector and circulation coins over the span of many decades. We are also honored to have handcrafted military medals for more than 80 years, which solemnly recognize the service and sacrifice of Canadian soldiers. This year, the Mint embarked on an ambitious coin program that will last until 2020 to commemorate the many facets of Canada's experience at home and on the battlefields during the First and Second World Wars. We are very pleased that, through its coins, the Mint is joining Canadians in remembering generations to whom we owe so much. Today is a special moment for us as we are unveiling the first circulation coin in this program, which tells the story of the famous 1940 photograph known as Wait For Me Daddy, taken here in New Westminster and which so vividly captured the sacrifices of all Canadians who lived through the Second World War. La monnaie marque une grande étape aujourd'hui en lançant une pièce qui amorce notre ensemble de pièces de circulation, rendant hommage à tous les Canadiens qui ont vaincu la Première et la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. La célèbre photo de 1940, intitulée « Attends-moi, papa », prise il y a 74 ans, ici même à New Westminster, continue de rappeler les sacrifices de tous ceux qui ont été touchés par la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, et nous sommes fiers d'avoir gravé cette image toujours frappante sur une nouvelle pièce de $2. I feel extremely fortunate to be in the presence of a living history, as Warren Whitey Bernard, the little boy at the center of this famous photo, is with us today for the unveiling of a $2 circulation coin that will give new visibility and meaning to the story of Wait For Me Daddy. As mentioned, 5 million of these coins will be circulating on Monday, October 6th, but we have arranged for a special coin exchange right in the Anvil Center across the way so that you can take home this special piece of Canadian history, which is a moving reminder of what Canadian soldiers and their families endured all those many years ago. I want to again thank the city and the people of New Westminster for welcoming us to today's celebration, and a close and heartfelt thank you to our veterans and active military who have sacrificed so much so that we can continue to live in peace, freedom, and enjoy the true meaning of being Canadian. Thank you. Merci.
All right, then, to assist with the unveiling of the coin and the stamp, Rifleman Charles Bernhardt, Rifleman Henry Creewoken, Minister Finley, Mayor Wright, Whitey, Candace McPherson, and Scott McPherson.
Where do you want us?
Up here. So you're going to unveil this one, and you're going to unveil that one. Okay. So we'll unveil this one. No, this one we're just unveiling this. All good.
And as was mentioned, of course, you'll have opportunity to purchase first day of sale stamps and exchange your old toonies for the new toonie in the Anvil Centre after we unveil the sculpture. While you're over at the Anvil Centre, of course, please be sure to visit the New Westminster Museum's exhibit, Wait for Me Daddy. It's located on the 3rd floor. So we know there was a photograph, then there was a huge passage of time, and eventually an idea. The person behind that idea went on to become the chair of the city's Wait for Me Daddy task force, Councillor Laurie Williams.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor and honored guests, and ladies and gentlemen. Well, the day has come, and here it is, and I couldn't be prouder of everybody and everything that has had to do with Wait for Me Daddy. It was a struggle at times, but it was well worth it. We have this beautiful stamp and we have the coin, but mostly we also have this beautiful sculpture. And I am pleased to be the one to introduce the artist, but let me tell you a little bit about it, because the search for the artists, it went international. We got 15 submissions, and out of that 15, the committee, which was comprised of people from all over the city, from every possible category, we chose, from the 15, we narrowed it down to 5. And we invited those artists to come to bring a model of what they were going to do and to present it to us and explain it. They did. We had the 5 models. The artists went home and we pondered. And it didn't take long. And strangely enough, this doesn't happen very often in New Westminster, it was a unanimous decision to choose the artists that we did choose. And stranger yet, when we brought it to council, all 7 of us on council approved, and it was a unanimous decision once again. So you are going to see a wonderful, wonderful memorial, but it's also a tremendous work of art. It's both modern and traditional, and it's 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. It has everything that you could ever want in public art. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you the artists that did this wonderful sculpture. Edwin and Veronica Damdanagalis. Would you please come?
One of the benefits of being one of the last speakers is that we can keep you waiting longer and longer, and no one's there to stop us. The disadvantages is that most things have already been said, but I'll let Veronica say a few words, and then I'll get back to you as well.
Well, the truth is we worked until the last minute on the sculpture with our hands, so we haven't really prepared a speech. But we just want to thank you, the city, for choosing us to be the artist, to be able to reinterpret the beautiful picture that Detlef took and bring it into our artistic vision.
I think for the artist is expected in a way to see things that other people don't see, to look at things differently. And I think for us, it's an interpretation of not just a time period back in 1940. It's an interpretation of the space as it is today, the people of New Westminster, what they are doing with their city, the streets that lead up to this particular space at this particular moment in time. When you walk the streets, you see bridal shops. To us, these are symbols of hope. You see pharmacies, and you think this is the symbol of health and well-being. You see construction, and you see this is building a future. You see an intersection of streets, and it's a crossroads of moment, not only of space, but of time. And here, we're about to unveil a sculpture that, in a way, has one step in the future and one step in the past. The city of New Westminster is ideal for this. It has one modern, beautiful building, and across from it, it has a building that's been here for 150 years. And somehow they make it work. You can't do that in every city. Not every city can build this sort of celebration around an idea, around a moment in time that has been frozen, among a celebration, I suppose, of spirit of humanity. In this work, we see commitment. We don't just see a war memorial. We don't see glorification of war. We see preservation of peace. We see the separation that so many have spoken about. And we see this being repeated day after day after day in normal, everyday lives. Canada finds itself at crossroads many times in history. Again, we find ourselves at a new crossroad. Our politicians will argue, and each and all of us are in some way looking for the same thing. So I hope, our hope, is that in this, not just the people who are remembering, but the people who are coming in the next generation too can find a moment to pause and to reflect. And I think it is in this reflection that somehow we find our sense of humanity. So, without another word, I've told not to say too much. I tend to be long-winded. After you've been working something, Veronica especially, whose hands never left this piece and who knows this photograph better than anyone else. We just want to say thank you to Claude Detlef for the things that he set in motion here. It's curious the way that one thing can spiral into the next. So we have people here who said, I have a list of things I had to do today, and I finished my list, and the next day my list was twice as large because more and more this project took on momentum and expanded and led to this moment where we have people from all walks of life here celebrating something. And anyways, we're honored to be a small part of that. So thank you ever so much.
Are you ready?
Now for the moment that we all have been waiting for. I'm going to ask a few of our guests, if you would please make your way to the monument to help with the unveiling. Your Honour, Lieutenant Governor Judith Guichon, Minister Finley, Mayor Wright, Rifleman Bernhard and Crewoken, Councillor Williams, Whitey Bernard, and I'm going to ask, hang on for a second. Whitey mentioned he has grandchildren, and he has a little granddaughter, Sophie. And I don't know where Sophie is, but if someone can maybe have Sophie come up and be with Grandpa. As you know, Whitey was 5 years old the day the photograph was taken. Sophie is 5 years old. And I also invite Candace McPherson and Scott McPherson.
I'm going to. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Beautiful. Major, the Reverend Canon, Dr. John Alfred Steele, will now lead a blessing for the official unveiling.
Thank you. Each memorial uniquely represents the community's chosen method of remembrance. They're a focal point for both individual and collective remembrance, linking past to present, enabling us to remember the sacrifice of those who died, fought, participated, or were affected by conflicts. They aid us in understanding the sacrifices made for freedom by past generations, by those who had to leave, and those who stayed behind. They are also a reminder of those who are currently serving today, of their families and loved ones who bid them farewell and wait anxiously for their return. They are too a sign of our hope that one day there will be war no more. In the spirit of freedom afforded each of us in this great country by the service and sacrifices made by our people and their families, I invite you, each according to your own tradition or conscience, to pray for God's blessing and guidance, or simply to use this moment for personal contemplation as others pray. Let us pray. Merciful and compassionate God, We gather today in both gratitude and grief. Grief for a world full of conflict and division. Grief for lives lost and for enduring wounds, both seen and unseen. And yet we also stand grateful for the gifts of healing, hope, and courage, for the gift of this, our cherished homeland, and for lives that are dedicated to freedom and to service. We are thankful for the men and women of our Canadian Armed Forces who have served with such honor and sacrifice to make possible the promise of peace and prosperity. May we ever be grateful for their selfless dedication and for their professionalism and commitment. We are also humbled and inspired by the tremendous support and sometimes bitter sacrifice of our military families, whose love and devotion are so vital to the lives and to the calling of our military personnel. Uphold them, we pray, in their watching and waiting, in their laughter and in their tears. We remember with deep sadness and renewed resolve the shattered lives of our brave fallen, the grief and loss of their friends and loved ones, and the wounds that are now borne by so many of our veterans and by many of our still serving personnel. May we never forget those who have given so deeply of themselves. Gracious and loving God, may this memorial be for us a remembrance of those who have served with such honor and sacrifice, of their families and loved ones who waited, of our currently serving military personnel and those waiting for them to return home, for those who have returned wounded in body, mind, or spirit, and for those who continue to care and minister to them. For the benefit of this town and community of New Westminster, and in memory of those and their families who have served, we dedicate this memorial as a pledge to keep alive the memory of those who serve and those who wait. We remember before you, O God, and commend to your keeping those who have died in service of their country and whose memory we treasure, and all who have lived and died in the service of all people. O God of hope, grant eternal rest to the fallen, your everlasting comfort to those who mourn, your healing to all who suffer, and your strength to all who serve. On this day, O God, we ask your blessing upon this nation and upon its leaders and people, that we might each be inspired to work together for a more just and peaceful world. Dear God, grant the living grace to the departed rest, to the Queen, the Commonwealth, and all people, unity, peace, and concord, now and forever. And this we ask in your holy name. Amen.
If you would please all rise for the singing of God Save the Queen, led by Sarah Quinn.
God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen. God save our Queen. Send her victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the Queen. make them fall. Confound their politics, frustrate their knavish tricks. On thee our hope we fix. God save the Queen. Thy choicest gifts in store on her be pleased to pour. Long may she reign. May she defend our law and ever give us cause to sing with heart and voice. God save the Queen.
So we're just coming to the end of our ceremony this morning. Mayor Wright, you will bid farewell to Her Honor. Shortly, we will remove the barriers for all of you eager to see the monument up close. We're just going to give the veterans and the special guests a few moments for some photographs. So you've hung in there this long, just a few more seconds, and we'll welcome you all to come and take a look. And of course, join us in the Anvil Center for a closer look at the stamps and to exchange your tunies. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this historic event.
Her honor's going back to the diocese. Ruby wants you to know that. Okay.
Mention anything about the lighting of the sculpture at 7:30 tonight?
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay. Your Honor, you'll be returning to the dais. Take a salute.
Yes, up to the diocese. To the troops. Yeah. The fair round.
So just give us a few minutes for some photographs, and then everyone is more than welcome to come and take a closer look at this beautiful war memorial. And I'd also like to invite you back right here this evening at 7:30. As you've heard, it's a war memorial. It's also a work of art, and there'll be the first official lighting of this new piece that will exist for a long, long time in Hyack Square. So if you'd like to come back at 7:30 tonight for the lighting, we'd love to have you here. Thank you again, everyone, for coming out and for being a part of this historic event. Enjoy your day.